Have you ever been watching a British TV show and just been totally baffled? You know, they say something like, put it in the boot, and you're thinking, what does that have to do with a shoe? Or maybe you're in the US and someone offers you chips, and what you get is, well, definitely not what you were expecting. These aren't just little quirks. They're the super fascinating fault lines between British and American English, and today we're going to map them all out.
So it seems like a pretty simple question, right? But the answer is, believe it or not, surprisingly complex. We're talking about a language that hopped across an ocean and basically grew up in two totally different environments. So what's the deal? Is it one language with a few funny accents, or are these two dialects slowly drifting apart? Let's find out.
All right, think of this as your essential survival guide. We're going to look at the simple, everyday words that cause the most confusion, whether you're on vacation, trying to follow a recipe from a British cookbook, or even in a business meeting.
You know this famous line, people usually say it was George Bernard Shaw, absolutely hits the nail on the head. It's just such a clever way of saying that even when we think we're speaking the same language, we can still get our wires completely crossed. So let's see just how tangled those wires can get.
Okay, let's dive into the nitty-gritty. This is where the fun starts. We're heading into the great word swap, and we're going to put these two dialects head to head. You'll see just how different they can be.
Right, let's start with the all-time classic, the source of probably a million arguments. In the UK, it's football. In the US, it's soccer. But here's a fun fact for you. The word soccer actually came from Britain. It was slang for association football. So ironically, Americans are using an old British term that the Brits themselves don't really use anymore. How about that?
Now this one's a little more subtle, but it's a dead giveaway. I mean, everyone understands both, but in the UK, you're just more likely to hear the older term aeroplane. It's a small spelling difference, sure, but it's a perfect example of how the two dialects just took slightly different paths over the years.
Here's one you'd run into every single day. In the UK, you go to the shops. In the US, you go to the store. It's the exact same activity, just a different word. It's a really simple swap, but it can instantly tell someone where you're from. This one can lead to some pretty funny mix-ups. See, in the UK, the whole patch of grass behind your house is your garden. But in the US, a garden is usually a specific plot where you're growing flowers or vegetables. So if a Brit invites an American to a garden party, the American might be picturing a whole lot more roses and a lot less lawn.
Okay, this one is my absolute favorite. In the UK, a torch is that battery-powered light you use when the power goes out. In the US, a torch is, well, it's a stick on fire, something you'd see an angry mob carrying in a movie. So seriously, if you're in the US and the lights go out, asking for a torch might get you some very, very strange looks. You're going to want to ask for a flashlight.
So after all these examples, you might be thinking, wow, these are practically two different languages. But here's the thing, and this is the main takeaway. For all their little differences, they're still way more alike than they are different. Let's wrap up with what really matters here.
So what's the big lesson here? I mean, beyond just memorizing which word to use where, what's the real key to navigating these linguistic waters without getting lost?
You know, it really all boils down to one simple thing. Context. Context is king. These aren't mistakes. They're just local flavors, and that's exactly what makes language so cool and interesting. And probably the most important thing is just don't be afraid to ask. A simple, hey, what do you mean by that? Can save you a ton of confusion, and honestly, it can even start a great conversation.
And that kind of brings us to this big final question for the future. I mean, in this super connected world we live in with the internet and global TV shows, are all these little differences going to get smoothed out? Are we headed for one single kind of homogenized English? Or will we see the opposite? Will people hold on even tighter to their local ways of speaking? It's this fascinating linguistic tug of war, and it's happening right now.